This is a Kia. More specifically, this is the Stinger GT, a full-on GT car which Kia claims competes with the BMW 4 Series Grand Coupe and the Audi A5 Sportback. But I like to think of it as a scaled-down version of the Aston Martin Rapide. Let me explain why. Think about it in essence. What is an Aston Martin Rapide? Well, it's a four-door Grand Touring car designed to be very comfortable, very fast, and also pretty good at handling as well. That's exactly what the Stinger GT does. First things first, comfort. The car is incredibly refined, very little NVH, feels like a really well-built product. Some of the materials around the cabin are okay, BMW interior isn't that much better anyway, so we're good there. The engine, 3.3 liters, twin turbocharged, 365 horsepower, but more importantly, 376 pound-feet of torque with full torque at just 1300 RPM. That means you have torque all throughout the rev range. It will happily, sit in 8th gear on the freeway, give you decent fuel economy, I suppose. But when you need to pass, drop a couple of gears, and it's ready to go. The auto response is really well calibrated. Again, I really like the drive modes in this car because whether you're in comfort or sport mode, it doesn't seem to make a difference, and that's a compliment. You can get the transmission to downshift when you want it to. You don't feel like you have to switch it to sport mode just so you can pass someone on the freeway, so that's really nice. We've tested this transmission before. It's similar to the transmission used in the Genesis cars, the G90 and the G80 Sport that we drove. Very impressive for an automatic because it will shift like a dual clutch in terms of shifting speed. It responds pretty quickly when you pull on one of the paddles. It rev matches, but it gives you the smoothness of a torque converter automatic compared to a dual clutch automatic, so that's really nice. Steering, very well calibrated. Albert Bierman, who used to work for BMW's M division, is now the head of chassis tuning and handling at Kia and Hyundai, so he had his hand in this car, and it shows. Handling exactly how you expect a car of this caliber to respond. It's pretty sharp through the corners, very minimal body roll. Car does a really good job of managing its weight, and it has a lot of weight. It's not super sharp and edgy like a raw sports car would be, but again, that's not the point. The point of a GT car is to be very comfortable, but to be able to handle those back roads when you're on that segment of your journey. It feels really direct. There's not a lot of feel to the steering, and I suspect that's just because the Kia is so refined that there's no vibration coming through anywhere in the car. It's really incredible, so that really plays to the GT aspect of this car. Brakes traditionally in a Kia or a Hyundai, a little bit softer, not quite as responsive, but in this car with the Brembos and whatnot, definitely a lot more confidence inspiring. I hope that Kia is able to add a little bit more brake feel in the future. I would like it more heavier, a little bit more sensitive of a pedal, but at least there's no dead spot at the top of the pedal. When you touch the pedal, you can actually feel the car slowing down, so that's nice. Road noise is also kept at a minimum. It's a little bit loud right now because of the rain, but when it's not raining, very little wind noise gets into the cabin. You have double laminated windows to block out noise as well. Engine is extremely quiet. In fact, it's the whole thing, the engine and the exhaust is so quiet that they actually have to pipe in noise through the speakers to give it a little bit more drama. Inside, the Stinger GT has a very clean layout, very simple. The air vents are a little reminiscent of Mercedes, but we'll gloss over that. Buttons have a great weight to them. Decent materials use. Some extra plastic bits that I would prefer to be, a real, nicer material like metal or some more leather surfaces would be nice, but it's pretty on par with cars of this class. Now, the exterior, probably the most controversial part of this car. Some people love it, some people hate it. I like it. I think it's striking, it's interesting to look at, and most importantly, it's not boring. I think the front end is decently aggressive as well. I love the side profile of this car, just the way the back swoops down, that kind of fastback design, almost like a shooting brake look. The rear end is also extremely distinct. I'm not sure how I feel about the two taillights being connected by the red bar that's supposed to look like a light bar, but it doesn't actually light up, so I'm not sure how I feel about that. But I do like how the trunk kind of turns into a little spoiler that sticks out without actually having a spoiler stuck on there, so it's very well integrated. Love the wheels on the car. You got to get the GT though for that reason. Don't get a 2-liter 4-cylinder. Get the GT just for looks alone. It's also got this nice smoked chrome treatment throughout the car, around the grills, around the door sills, and I love the mirror caps as well. Now, if you're at all interested in the Stinger and you're wondering which engine you should get, you should definitely get the GT, which gives you the 3.3 twin-turbo V6. Otherwise, base Stingers get a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo. Nothing wrong with that engine, but you just can't go back after driving the V6. It's got, almost 100 horsepower more. It's got more standard features. It has better styling. It's going to give you those Brembo brakes. That's going to give you the stopping power for this much weight of the car. It's just the car to buy. For 2019, they did add LSD to all the V6 trim levels. Back in 2018, that was an option on the lower trim levels. So some of the V6s actually had open differential. You don't want that. Make sure whatever Stinger GT that you get has a limited slip differential. This is a lot of horsepower for a rear wheel drive car, and you don't want to be spinning your power to the inside wheels on a turn. So, Stinger GT or Genesis G70? Well, Genesis is going to be a little bit smaller of a car, and that is also designed to be a little bit sportier than the Stinger. Stinger is designed to be a little bit more of a cruiser car. The G70 is definitely more of a sports sedan type of feel. So that really just depends on what type of vehicle you're looking for. Also, Genesis interior is going to be much better trimmed on the inside than the Stinger. So that's something to consider, but more details about that when we test that car later on. Who is this for? This is for someone that wants to spend $40,000 to $50,000. They want a BMW 5 Series sized car, but only costs around of a BMW 3 or 4 Series, but with lots of standard features, with lots of performance and great handling as well. The way this car feels is completely unexpected for any car in this price point, let alone a Kia. And that's what makes it so interesting, again, is because it's branded as a Kia. Now, the person that typically spends $40,000 to $50,000 isn't normally going to be running around in a Kia dealership. And the buying experience there is obviously going to be very different than if you buy from one of the German brands. We've talked a lot in a lot of our videos where we see this trend of manufacturers playing it safe and building cars that appeal to the masses. And here's Kia coming out from left field, building a car that's truly aimed at the enthusiast, trying to make something fun, good to look at, and appealing from a driving standpoint. And that's bold. You know, that's not a car that's going to sell in massive numbers, but they're doing it anyway because they can and they want to. They want to start making a name for themselves and start changing their brand image, and that's very admirable, and I absolutely love it. And what's funny is I've complained all these years, as you guys watch on our channel, about BMW and how their handling is just, that much short of what I expect it to be from BMWs of old. And this car handles how I expect a modern BMW to handle. And a modern BMW doesn't handle like this. You can't help but to praise Kia for the job that they've done. A lot of people see this as like a 3 Series or a 4 Series competitor. I think it's a step above it. I think it's in a class of its own, literally, because I just don't think there's anything that can be a direct apples to apples comparison with it, and that's its charm. So really thankful that Kia built this car, and very thankful for what Hyundai Auto Group is doing. Makes me that much more excited to test the G70 later on.